Well, for months we've been talking about Stephen Guilbeault's bill called Bill C-10. A lot of other people in the mainstream media have been talking about it too. It would put the internet under the regulation of the government regulator called the CRTC. And it would regulate things like YouTube broadcasts, including from us. Now, it would politicize the internet. It would put it under the thumb of the government. And rightfully, a lot of people are concerned. But there's companion legislation that Stephen Guilbeault and other Liberal cabinet ministers have been threatening, for which C-10 just sets the table, sets the regulatory framework that allows the government to do other things later. So when C-10 says the government is going to tell the tech companies they have to show a certain amount of Canadiana, or they must show this or can't show that, that's just the enabling law that will then get fleshed out later, including by this bizarre and outrageous bill tabled just yesterday by Trudeau's Justice Minister from Montreal named Lametti, the one brought in to be more compliant to Trudeau's wishes than the previous Justice Minister, Jody Wilson-Raybould. Bill C-36 is bringing back internet censorship. That is the heart of the bill. C-10 regulates the internet. C-36 says what the regulation is for, to crack down on what the Liberals call hate speech, which I like to say is really speech that they hate. But there's other terrifying things in it too. Joining us now to talk about it is our friend Spencer Fernando, who joins us via Skype. Great to see you again, Spencer.
Good to see you.
You know what? For 8 years, Canada has not had this censorship provision of the Human Rights Act. It was taken out in the late years of Stephen Harper's administration in response to some abusive prosecutions, including against me. Why do you think the political motivation is there? Do you think there's a demand by Canadians to have this censorship back? Or do you think it's the Liberal Party's own agenda to silence voices like, I don't know, ours, or maybe even yours?
Well, I think there's a demand on the far left, certainly, for that. I don't think the average Canadian is saying they want this. But again, the Liberals, I think they see it as a politically opportune moment. Unfortunately, because of what happened in, the tragedy in London, Ontario, I think they see that as something they can twist politically and use that as a supposed justification for bringing this in. But of course, it's just justifying in their thinking what they've wanted to do all along. As you say, with C-10, they lay the framework for this, and then with C-36, they're going even further. So I think they see it both as a way to control people, to kind of chill free speech and shut down their opponents, but also to put the Conservatives in a tough situation. I think you can see, they don't expect it's going to be passed quickly, right? the Parliament, the session's ending. But I think what they see is they see an opportunity to go and campaign against the Conservatives and say, oh, well, how come you guys don't oppose hate speech, right? That's the kind of simple narrative they want to push with an election coming up. So I think it's a big part of it is politics, of course.
Yeah, I think you're right. C-10 did get through the House of Commons, and I'm not sure if it'll make it through the Senate. Haven't been following closely enough. I can imagine the Liberals, if they want it passed, they'll get it passed. C-36, that's the new one. No chance of it getting passed. I think they just want it there because they want the country to be talking about that because they think it's a big winner. When he rolled it out yesterday, David Lametti specifically made mention of that London family that was killed, the Afzal family that were hit by the speeding truck on the road. Now, I haven't seen the latest on that, but as far as I know, we don't have evidence yet, maybe it'll come, that the driver of that car, who was a young man who had psychological problems, who was estranged from his own family, who had incidences of aberrant behavior before him, I don't think we have evidence yet, correct me if I'm wrong, Spencer, that he was motivated by some online hatred or something like that. Despite that lack of evidence, David Lametti made specific reference to that killing in his pitch for this internet censorship. I think they're trying to blame everything bad on their internet enemies so they can silence their internet enemies. I think you're spot on with that.
Yeah, it's the fear narrative, right? It's, okay, if we don't silence these people, then more people are going to die. That's the message that they want to push. But of course, you notice how they respond to different tragedies, right? The shooting in Toronto, you had, I think, a few children who were shot there. somehow that doesn't become an issue for all of society to change and a chance for all of us to reflect and learn and grow. And oh, Canada's totally wrong and our history is terrible. So it's interesting how certain things are exploited and certain things are not, right? It's not the actual factual basis of what took place, but it's the narrative that, politicians think they can spin it with.
Yeah.
So I think with C-36, of course, you're going to see them. They're going to use whatever justification they think will work politically for them, and they're going to try to put their opponents on the defensive. So I think we'll see how much willpower and strength the Conservatives have to push back against that, because they're going to be, they're going to be attacked by the Liberals pretty harshly. Yeah. And we'll see if they have the toughness to push back on that.
I remember when this section of the Human Rights Act was repealed by Harper in 2013, there was a lone Liberal MP named Scott Sims, who actually used to be a journalist before, who voted to repeal it. And I believe he's still an MP. I wonder what he'll do now. I wonder if he'll show that courage to stand for free speech now. I wonder if any MPs other than the Conservative will. And also, wouldn't surprise me, Spencer, if one or two Conservatives, the woker Conservatives, said, what a great chance for me to show I'm ahead of the curve, for me to win kudos from the fancy people. I'm going to come out in favor of this anti-hate bill just so people don't think I'm a hater. I think things have moved so much in the last decade that not only will Scott Sims and all the Bloc and all the NDP be for censorship too, I think you might even see some Conservative MPs say, well, it's not that bad, and one day we'll win government and we'll want to censor the internet too. I don't know. Maybe I'm too pessimistic, but I think our politicians are worse than ever.
Yeah, I mean, it's been concerning, a few statements lately from some Conservative MPs that seem like they're kind of buckling psychologically under the pressure from the woke crowd, or, the neo-coms or neo-communists, as you could call them, because that's really what a lot of this is, right? It's, kind of, people who are communists, but they're dressing it up as being woke now, just a better name for it. But I think some Conservatives are starting to buckle psychologically. They don't have, the strength to push back, or it's just political. They think, oh, we'll win some votes by being woke. Of course, if you're a Conservative, you're never going to be even close to woke enough for the woke crowd. I mean, The whole strategy is to constantly shift the goalpost farther to the left. So if you move to where they are now, well, they'll move again, so that you have to keep chasing them, right? Yeah. But I think, you could be right. We may see some of them vote for this, or propose, something similar, just so they don't get attacked as being hateful. And unfortunately, they really seem to struggle to push back with opposite narratives to those things.
That's an excerpt from my daily show, the Ezra Levant Show. Every day I do a monologue on the news of the day, then I interview an interesting guest, and then I read my hate mail. You gotta subscribe. Go to rebelnews.com.